Oh, or as the Aussies say for Joe, good day. Good day.
Good day.
Good day.
Good day.
So here we are. Okie dokie. It's Yoga Sutras time. I thought I'd start with a little song this morning just to make it exciting.
I think Joe wants to join on that.
No, that was from yesterday.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, I know I'm right. Because we already experimented with that.
I was confused.
And alrighty, so where are we here? And Joe is here. Where's others? There's somebody else is with us already. As we most of us know, people tend to be slow about starting. One nice thing about this format of communicating through this Be Live is that it allows you to schedule it ahead of time, and so it tells me when it's ready to go, and it gives me 10 minutes to turn the thing on, and if I don't turn it on in 10 minutes, it dies. So it's a good reminder to me to be here on time. Hi, Roseanne. Anyway, so where we are here is where we're going into, we've divided, as you know, the sutras into 39 sections, and we're looking at section 2 today. Last time we talked about what is yoga. As I think everybody knows by now, what is there? Oh, I have Roseanne on there. I'm doing this Yoga Sutras twice a week, doing it on Wednesday and Saturday, so we just move through smoothly like that. And there is Scott. Hi, Scott. And there is Raj with a hi, y'all. And there is Wouter and hi, everybody. And Joel says hi, Roseanne and Raj. Excuse me. And Rojo is here with me.
Hi.
Says a gentle hi. Anyway, so we go into section 2 today, Sutras 5 to 11. Witnessing and uncoloring thoughts is what I labeled that section there. And I just put that there just to get us sort of started, and then I'll take that out. And I'm becoming slowly accustomed to moving this mouse around and sort of managing what's going on here. And I'll make me small if this works, and that will become a little bigger. And notice again our little icon over here that I made. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 columns here for the 4 chapters of the sutras, and in the length of the column is the number of sutras in there. And so this is a visual that for those who think visually, this helps you remember, oh, wait a minute, where was that section of the sutras that was about so-and-so? And then your mind can maybe more easily remember. If you're looking at sutras in a book, for example, and you have 400 pages to look at, you remember something, but you don't remember where it was. And this helps us remember that. So, for example, where are the first 5 rungs of the 8 rungs? Well, they're down here. They're towards the end of chapter 2. Where are rungs 3 of 6, 7, and 8 of the 8 rungs? They're up here. They're in the area of the beginning of chapter 3. So gradually, where is the section on Om Mantra? Well, it's about here in the middle of chapter 1. Anyway, that's just an idea. Bloody all right. Okay. How you going, Joe? Bloody all right. There we go. Hi, B. So anyway. And I'm not going to try to read all these things. I'm becoming accustomed to, as you know, when Matri and I started doing these things on Saturday morning, we were sitting on the couch just holding it, and it was more natural to just go through it. When I'm looking at it on the screen here, there's a temptation to want to go through every word and every sentence. And I'm trying to not do that with this approach to reviewing the Yoga Sutras. We're trying to hit the highlights. Oops, what is this over here? Bogan is my third language. Bogan. What is Bogan? I never heard of Bogan. But anyway, I don't need to have heard. Thinning the veil. The joy of deeper meditation comes through uncoloring the mental obstacles that veil the true self. That's the key of this. This section describes 5 kinds of interfering mental impressions. That's why this is introduced at this early stage of the Yoga Sutras. Remember that in the definition of yoga, yoga is chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the setting aside. The experience of yoga comes from setting aside the nirodha of all of the chitta vrittis, all the fluctuations in the chitta. And then tadadrastu svarupa vasanam, then the seer rests in its true nature, called enlightenment or self-realization, which is purusha or atman, etc. And so then it says, vritti swarupya itaratra. At other times, we identify with the thought patterns of the mind field. And so, and those are the obstacles. And what are those interfering thoughts that Patanjali is pointing out here in this section, that as complex as our minds seem, and we have virtually countless, or we can use a big number, we can say, well, I have millions of thoughts going on in my mind. I have a lot going on in there. But the beauty of it is the way Patanjali is presenting this, they all come down to only 5 categories. There's only 5 categories of thoughts. The practical part of this being enumerated here is that gradually what we all want to do, we may not remember the Sanskrit word, or we may remember the Sanskrit term, it doesn't matter exactly, but we generally come to remember these 5. And then when there's a distraction or a disturbance comes into your mind field, you understand what it is. You realize, oh, I know what's going on here. It gives you a way. And then he points out that these thoughts are either colored or not colored. Now, as we get down in this sutra, where he introduces klishta and aklishta, he does not go into great detail with that. That is referred to, I'm going to look here in Sutra 3 of Chapter 2. It's a nice thing about doing it this way because I can click on hyperlinks. I'm going to click on this hyperlink here just to show you that this is where it is enumerated in Sutra 2.3, Sutra 3 of Chapter 2. And there is our friendly avidya, asmita, raga, devesha, and avanivesha. But I'm going back now. Here, in the early sutras, in this section of sutras of Chapter 1, Patanjali does not outline them. He introduces the concept. And this is why those thoughts are disturbing, because they are klishta. They're colored with attractions, aversions, and like that. And so what did I put here? I put klishta and aklishta, and this is an effort to provide a graphic that makes our intellectual minds happy. So here's a symbol. I just use these symbols because it was what was available at the time when I made these, and I have to use rather rudimentary graphic stuff because I'm not skilled at doing that. And so what I did is, this is just a grid of a whole bunch of humans. So I have memories of many, many people in my mind field. Now, there's no meaning to this color coding. There is no color code meaning. I just use random color. But the principle is what I'm trying to communicate. There are people in my memory that when I go over to our food store across the street and I walk through there, there's a handful of the people that we know rather well, like the cashiers, because we see them often. And so they will say hello. There's one woman in there who just absolutely adores Matri, and the two of them have sort of become friendly to one another, and they're always greeting each other. So that memory of that woman in the chitta of Matri is colored. It's colored with I like. And again, there's no meaning to these colors of purple or blue or yellow or red or green. I just used sort of random colors. Yet there's a lot of other people who are also in that store. We see some customers in there. A few days ago, I was in there and I saw a man. He is a preacher. He's a Disciples of Christ minister in a local church. And I have known him now for something over 10 years. And I quite like him and he likes me. And so we bump into each other out in the community from time to time. And it's always nice to see him. So my memory trace of him is very much colored because he's a person I know and he's a person I count as friend. So there's other people, all the other people at that part of the store that day when I spotted him, many other people were there. I might have recognized some of them, but they're neutral. And this is not about being black and white here. You know, there's no coloring here. That's blah. That's boring. It's not meaning that, but many of our memories are colored in one way or another. And then I'm going to go back here and I'll click on the next one and it'll take you to the Eklishta. It takes me to the same place. I just didn't remember how. And the principle here is, again, just using icons that were available, is that what you and I are trying to do is attenuate that coloring, particularly the raga and devesha, the attraction and aversion, and the fear and the I-ness and all that. And so this is a symbol of money. That's fear. That's a spider. You know, just like example, there's food, there's security, there's romance, there's a drink. I don't know what that symbolizes. There's a cigarette. There's an award for being famous. There's a little calendar for time. There's our car. There's an ambulance for our health. And there's our house. And so what we're trying to do, if you see the house next door, it's colored like it's not colored at all because it's not my house. But when I get a house and it's my house and it's intensely colored, that's why it's very dark green, very bright green here, because that's my house. And gradually what we do as yogis is recognize, okay, it's a very nice house and I live in this house, but gradually I reduce the coloring to this house. And maybe it's only as light as this here. Maybe it's not perfectly, totally attenuated down to zero, but it's attenuated a lot. So imagine that all of these examples here that I've used, that we just attenuate everything down to where the coloring is weak. I still have a little attachment to money, but it's not like it used to be. I used to be terrified of losing my job and being broke, but now life is going pretty good. Everything's pretty steady, and I recognize that my fear has gone down. Maybe I had some bad habits with alcohol. That's an alcohol drink. Maybe I had some bad habits with cigarettes, and those are just symbols. And over time, I've let go of that strong attachment, and it's attenuated down. May not be zero, but it's pretty close. And so the same principle holds with all of these. These are just two graphics to attempt to make this very, very practical. And so where was that? It's down here. We're here, colored and not colored. By learning to explore and become witness to these 5 kinds of thoughts, and by learning to allow the coloring to fade through the various process of yoga, the veil over truth gradually thins, and we come to experience the true self. Let's look at this here. Remember, the way I've done this is I cover this whole section of sutras right in the introduction part. Allow the coloring to fade. What does that mean? Sutra 16, coloring fade. Oh, that's right. It's non-attachment. And see, that is called vairagya. Paravairagya. This is supreme non-attachment. It follows through on vairagya from the previous sutra. There, see, there's the vairagya. Okay, so these sutras are linked. This is one of the reasons that it's so hard for most people to study and practice the Yoga Sutras, because each sutra is a part of the whole puzzle. And it's quite a challenge to be able to memorize all of them for most of us. So, boy, there's Leela. Good morning. Good morning, Leela. And there's a Nellie saying, hi. Hi, Nellie. Hi, Eileen. Good morning. Anyway, this is the reason we're going through these in this kind of way. And I like the hyperlinks on here. And I particularly like being able to do what you and I are doing together right now, because I'm getting to walk you through this. And then if you happen to be on my website looking through this out of your own curiosity, you'll have a greater understanding, I hope, of why I've put all these silly hyperlinks in here. It's not to make it complicated, it's to make it simple. So you can say, well, wait, what's this about? Learning to allow the coloring to fade. If you click on that, it will take you to Vairagya. And you'll remember, oh, wait a minute, that's right, Vairagya, non-attachment. Through the various process of the veil over truth gradually thins. What does that mean? The veil thins. We click there and we say, oh, I remember, that's Yogesh Chitta Vritti Nirodha. That's that Sutra 2 that we just did. It's Nirodha. It's that process of letting everything go. That's what that meant, okay? And we come to experience our true self from that process. What is that? That's Sutra 3. And there it is. Tadu Drastu Svarupe Avastanam. Then the seer, the Drastu, rests in his own true nature. That's the idea. This uncoloring process is an extremely important concept and is further dealt with in later chapters. It is such an important concept that it is virtually impossible to practice yoga without understanding it. And I really mean that. We simply must understand this process of attenuating the coloring, of attenuating the klesha. And we don't need to go in great detail here, but these are sutras from the next chapter talking about this process of uncoloring. Well, let's just look at it briefly here. Minimizing the gross colorings. It's about tapas, svadhyaya, ishvara, pranadhana. We'll go into that in a couple of weeks. We'll get to this part. And we'll remember that, wait a minute, back here, we talked about this as being introduced. And then this one is about dealing with the subtle impressions. So these first two blocks of sutra in chapter 2 have to do with the surface level, more gross impressions, and the next block of sutras is the subtle stuff. And this article here, Uncoloring Your Thoughts, that's the one we just looked at a moment ago. So it's a repeat. And Witnessing Your Thoughts is another article that expands what is that about. And so here's the reminder that says witness everything. And then this goes through a lot of the outlines of, well, what does it mean to witness everything? And so this article, we'll go through this at another time. Maybe I'll do that on a Saturday morning. I'll have to remind me, will you remind me, Rojo, to do that? I'm going to put a note here to my son. And so maybe next week at 10 o'clock, we'll go through this article. Anyway, so that's what that is. And then here's the actual sutras. I'm going to come back over here. And Joe says, howdy, Leela. Is this going okay for everybody? I'm not seeing any comments. Is there anything you want me to talk about more, or observation you want to share of this, or question? Just type it in the box. I'll see it. And it's going good. I guess that's Roseanne saying it's good. Something's good. All righty. Anyway, any comments, just let me know. I'll say more. Here's the actual sutras here. The Vritti, Panchateya. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but we can know a little bit. Panch is 5. Panchateya means fivefold or five kinds. The vrittis, there are five kinds of vrittis. And so if you're like me and you're not a Sanskrit scholar and you're curious, you can come look at these and you can look word by word and you can kind of piece it together and say, wait a minute, this does kind of make sense. And there's the words klishta and aklishta. So again, the concepts are being introduced right here. Remember, we've just talked about the sutra that says yoga is the nirodha, the setting aside of the thought fluctuations in the mind field. Why? Because the klishta vrittis, the colored thought patterns of attraction and aversion, are obstacles. It's like looking through a dirty window. You ever be lazy? I can be pretty lazy about cleaning the windshield on the front of my car. You ever have that happen? And so sometimes at night when the light is in a certain way, it's very hard to see out the windshield because the dirt is more obscuring than in the daytime in the bright sunlight. And so what do we need to do? We need to wash the windshield. And so this is what we're doing. We're turning dirty windshield into clean windshield. Just another made up metaphor. That's what we're trying to do. And turning klishta into aklishta, all of our levels of koshas are becoming very, very clear, like a nicely clean car window. And then we can see. Being a witness, yes, Joseph. And that's what I was saying. I'll come back maybe next week. We'll talk some more about that. The idea of being a witness starts with the simple. I'm saying this in simplistic terms. It means observe literally everything. One time I was walking with Swami Rama one day, and out of nowhere, he just dropped these two words on me. It was not part of a conversation. We were just walking along silently. We were not intentionally practicing silence. We're just two people walking along the river, just quietly walking together. Now, he's teacher, I'm dumb student, and all of a sudden two words fell out of his mouth. And the two words came out. Joseph, witness everything. He said it to me, the tone of his voice, I knew that he was giving me an instruction, a suggestion. And the two words, they felt, I'm going to put it like this so you can see what I'm animating. It felt like he dropped a bomb, a big bag of potatoes or something right at my feet. Bang, here, take this. What are you going to do with this kind of thing? He said, witness everything. And boom, here this was in front of me. And I could, hearing the inflection, I knew that he meant it. And what came out of my mouth back to him was something like, I don't think I know how to do that. Basically what you didn't say it like this, Joseph. You said, can you talk a little more? And so that's what I'm trying to talk about. It brings to mind that story. And so I said, I don't think I know how to do that. But he had caught my attention. And so since he had caught my attention, he said back to me, it will come. And I said something really intelligent along the lines of, because he said it will come. And then after our walk, I went dashing back to my room and I opened my notebook and I wrote the two words down in the notebook. I still have some of these notebooks around in a box somewhere. And I wrote down in there, witness everything. And when he told me it will come, I gradually figured out that the reason he said to me, why did he tell me it will come? How did he know that? And as I reflected back on it, I realized the reason he was able to so clearly say that to me and mean it was because he noticed the fact, I notice it sometimes when I'm having a conversation with a person. We all know how to do this when we're trying to make a point to another person. And you can tell in the body language of the other person when what you just said just went completely over the head and they didn't hear it at all. And other times you can see it in the facial expressions, in the body language. You know that you hit a home run. You know you got it, and you know that this one was heard. And he knew that I had heard him. So I went and dashed back the two words. And and I pondered over this and was frustrated over it for quite some period of time. And gradually over time, it became clearer and clearer and clearer to me what he meant. And after, I don't know, a year or two of remembering this, I understood what he was talking about. I'm going to say it another way, Joseph, and I don't, you have to do with what you want. It means pay attention to everything. Here's an example. Just as that was coming out of my mouth, I was trying to think of an example. And in the background, out here, my mouth was talking. Out here, my mouth was talking to you, but just inside, back here, so to speak, in just a moment, in a flash of a moment, I was aware of this room here, the living room of the ashram. And I'm aware that over there is the big screen TV, which I'm broadcasting onto. And I'm aware that right down there, you can't see from here, but right down there on the floor is a roho. And there's a couch over there, and there's a couch over there. There was just a snapshot moment of the simple awareness of this room. And coming along with this was the awareness that I'm using my indriyas, my indriya of seeing, my cognitive sense of seeing. And coming along with that, all of this was at once. I've been doing this a long time. So at the same time, there was the awareness of manas, one of the four functions of mind. That manas, the lower mind, had employed the cognitive sense of sight to take in this view here, and the couches and the roho and the TV and the computer laptop that's right here in front of me. So here's the room, and here's the eyeballs, and here's the indriya of seeing, and here's the manas that's bringing it in. And behind that, at the same moment, there was an awareness of the intelligence called buddhi that was behind the manas mind. And behind that, there is Atman, which is our friendly little thing over here. And so it starts, this thing of witness everything starts by paying attention to everything. And that's the sentence he gave me, witness everything. And one of the things elsewhere that we talk about from time to time, one place to start is with your own gestures and body language. If Roho, which she's not asking me this question, but if she were to ask me this question, how may I start to do this practice?
Baba, how may I start to do this practice?
See, did you hear her? She just said it. Baba, how may I start? I would say back to her, observe the fact that your knees are moving back and forth. She's laying on the floor there, and her knees, these are knees here, and her knees are doing this back and forth. That's part of observe everything. Why? Because when you observe your knees moving, knees don't move on their own. They just do not. Knees are part of body. Body does not move on its own. It's getting a message from the mind. Something in the unconscious mind is trying to express itself. I don't know what it is, but it's manas. It's the mind employing the karmendriya of motion to move those knees back and forth. Some desire, want, or wish is being expressed. And now she just reached over and got a cushion to put under her legs, and now her knees aren't moving anymore. So maybe, see, this is up to her to witness. Maybe one of the things that she discovered by paying attention to her knees like that is that there was a level of discomfort because she wanted a cushion under her legs. I don't know. She reached over and got a cushion and put it under her legs. And so now maybe it feels more comfortable. And what is she trying to do there on the floor? Sit here and participate with me in what we're doing. But she's trying to take it in so she can hear it and use her mental process to follow along with the conversation. And she's trying to be not disturbed by her body. So something is unconsciously uncomfortable, knees are going together, and a message is coming that says, give me a cushion. Anyway, I hope that's making sense. That's the kind of idea, Joseph. And so gradually all of this stuff that we keep talking about in the yoga practices, it all has to do with awareness, because ultimately, who is aware? The Atman, the Purusha itself. And remember the principle, the pure consciousness, the boo-boo that happens, as Sutra 4, Vritti Sarupya Mitaratra, is that this becomes identified with all the memory traces that are in the unconscious mind, and we forget. So, okay, I hope that helps a little, Joseph. And I'm going to look at what Scott says here. What a profound oh yeah, thank you, Raj. Yeah, oh, I remember when. Yeah, I should have commented soon. Scott says, when you properly attenuated the coloring, is the evidence of that to not respond to that which you've attenuated without any emotion? Yes, that's a way of saying it, Scott. This is what we notice. You may notice for yourself that a good example is food situations, food habits, or habits in a close relationship where maybe you have a habit of saying something. When you have a bad day, you make some wise-ass little comment to one of your children. And you sort of bark when you don't mean to. You love your children, but you're having a bad day and you bark. And I'm making up this story. I'm not talking about you, Scott. I don't know. It may relate or not. But we do these things in close relationships or with spouse. And you notice after some months or a year, you look back and or maybe your spouse says to you, wow, that's really neat. Something's happened with you, Scott. I'm glad you're doing this meditation stuff, because I remember you used to bark at me all the time about so-and-so, and you're not doing it anymore, or you notice it yourself. And this is often how we notice that something has attenuated, because we just notice it in life. And so this is why I often say that, I try to remember to say, that this yoga business really is a whole life process. When we run into the comments, the suggestion that says maintain constant awareness, that's another part of witness everything. How do we do that? We're doing it in this kind of way because we're becoming constantly aware of things like barking at people and being sweet, and knees doing less like Rojo. And now Rojo is laying there totally still. I don't know if she's sleeping or you're doing yoga nidra, or if she's listening to me talk. I don't know which it is. Only she knows. No, her eyes just open, so I guess she's still with me. Okay, Scott? Nellie says, Swamiji, recently I seem to get some experiences that the witnessing is coming from another place. My idea of witnessing, not via the mind. Well, you take what I'm about to say and then you plug it in, Nellie, and then you decide for yourself. What happens is that the nature of this witnessing gets subtler and subtler and subtler. So initially we may be practicing, okay, witness everything means be aware of the people in the room. When I'm out in the public, if I'm in that grocery store, I'm just being aware of all the activity going on out there. It's very sensory in the out here sense. And then gradually we become aware of the eyeballs that are seeing, and the ears that are hearing, and the sense of touch that is touching. We become aware of that. And then gradually we become aware of the manas, and gradually then we become aware of we're operating from buddhi. And initially we're operating from tamasic and rajasic, active out in the world buddhi. And then it's sattvic buddhi, the subtler aspects of buddhi. And gradually we're getting a glimpse or an intuition of what it's like to be here. Because ultimately the witness of all of this is Atman or Purusha. And so we gradually have deeper levels of that. And it's experienced in exactly the way you just said it, Nellie. The experience, the witnessing is coming from another place. My idea of witnessing, not via the mind. Yeah, we come to see that the witnessing, the observing, the participating in everything in the external world is operating through the mind. And when you're operating through the mind, what you're actually experiencing is coming to see, you've heard this many times, I know, the mind is actually an instrument. And most of the time we're walking around, Vritti Sarupya Mitaratra, Sutra 4, last section, we become so identified, we become identified with our mind, and we think that who I am is a mind. And gradually we start to experience what Nellie has just said here, not via the mind. The idea of witnessing is not via the mind. And when you're aware of that, you step back behind, so to speak, the mind. And so I am using the instrument of the mind to do something out there. I'll give you, here's a little metaphor. I, as a physical Swami J, am here, and I am using these glasses to help see. If I take them off, I cannot read even the biggest word on the screen of the computer. I can't read anything. I'm virtually blinded to it. I can see the shapes and all, but if I put my glasses on, then I can see. I say, oh, wonderful. I can see what's written there on the thing. And so the glasses are an instrument. What Nellie is describing there is gradually we come to see. Previously, unconsciously, I thought that who I am is my personality. Who I am is my mind and my mental process. By doing all this stuff over a period of months and years, we gradually come to see that, wait a minute, this mind, this manas itself is pretty much like the glasses. The mind is an instrument through which I operate. And oh my, all these years of my life, I thought that who I was is a mind. And we didn't see it before. Yeah, it's good, Joseph. I'll use that as a mantra. I don't know which you're going to use as a mantra. A slight suggestion, if you're going to use it as a mantra, use the words only as a means to jog your memory of the awareness that you're having right now that prompts you to say very helpful. It's the awareness that's important. It's not memorizing the words. That's why I try to go through these Yoga Sutras the way we are, trying to focus on the practical. LOL, it does relate. You must be talking about kids and wife, huh? I mean the mind as I did, yes. Okay, good. Thank you, Nellie, for bringing it up. Thanks everybody for typing stuff in there, because that helps make this an interaction. Get connection between the insights and the understanding through the mind. Yes, it does help a lot in the process, Nellie. Good. Okay, something was okay. I guess that means A-okay. I'll take that to mean A-okay. Okay. And then I said, okay, A-okay, okay. And so anyway, there's Sutra 5. I just want to quickly, we've sort of talked, and there's those pictures again. There's a lot of repeat in here because I'm trying, in the layout of these things, I'm trying to drive home the simple, the practical. The 5 kinds of thought, there they are. Pramana, Viparyeya, Vikalpa, Nidra, Srimat, Smriteya. And so come back sometime if you want, maybe I'll make a screenshot of this and put it in the comments here after we're done. You can see it. I'll make a screenshot. Will you remind me, Rojo, to make a screenshot of this? Huh? Of this sutra. What I was going to say is, and I'll make a screenshot with a JPEG with a picture on there. And if you're curious to do this, print out that picture on a piece of paper and carry it around in your pocket for a few days or a week or two, something like that. It will help you. I don't care about memorizing the Sanskrit words, but this is the one that most of us do a lot. Vikalpa, imagination, verbal conception or delusion, fantasy, hallucination. It doesn't mean we're crazy people. It means this is what minds do. Minds naturally go off into fantasy land. Well, we different personalities. My fantasy may go off in one direction. Rojo's goes off into another. Raj goes off, and Raj is sitting there designing a new airplane, because that's what he does as his profession. And so Rojo is sitting here daydreaming about patience and cats because she's a cat lover. And I'm sitting here daydreaming about yogic principles. Oops, sorry, I meant to turn that off. I left that on there. And this is what I was talking about here, this next sutra. That was my boo-boo. I forgot to switch the view here. So I'll take this section here and make a picture out of it. And this is what I was saying. So if your personal inclination is to memorize Sanskrit words, it's good to memorize some of them. But the important thing is to remember the principles. You know, I'm seeing clearly, or I'm seeing incorrectly. A classic example is where in the dim of the fading light at the end of the day, you see a snake over there. And then on closer inspection, you realize, no, it's not a snake, it's a rope. So seeing it as a snake was an unreal cognition, viparyeya. And when you suddenly realize, oh, it's only a rope, then that's seeing clearly. If I may borrow upon the exchange with Scott there, where I made some comments about barking in family, and he said something like, that's it. We often do this in relationships with people we're close to, in our families, and our coworkers, and our friends. We misread a situation. We misread a situation, and we respond to the other person from the standpoint of my misreading. And we can get really goofed up in very important relationships because we're not seeing each other, rather than checking it out, rather than cultivating an open, honest relationship where you talk to each other. If you have that, then you can say, something going on with you, Jay? Are you upset with me about something? And then your partner, your spouse, your child says, no, I just had this event happen at work today, or something like that. It has not to do with you, but yes, thank you for caring, and thank you for noticing. And so I think you all know what I'm talking about there. So we can misperceive a situation, and then we can create imagination, we can create storylines in our mind. So this stuff is very, 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 very practical. And here Patanjali talks about sleep, because having some degree of regulation over the awareness of sleep is very, very important. I refer to sleep, the way Patanjali is talking about here, as being a little bit, as a metaphor, like a black fuzzy. And just because when I'm laying down in bed, when it's go to sleep time, the mind clears out, and it's as if a big black fuzzy ball comes up, and I just immerse myself in it. And so sleep is a kind of fluctuation of mind to witness as best we can. And smritis are simply memories that are not viparyeya, they're not vikalpa, they have no coloring to them, they're just streams of memories coming. And here I put a little picture here, maybe I can put this picture, I don't know. I using fingers, because this is one of the things I did when I was first trying to learn this. I just simply counted it off. Right knowledge, wrong, imagine, sleep, and memory. It's convenient. We have 5 fingers, or 4 plus a thumb, depending on how you look at it. Mind fantasizing, roaming in the Himalayan peaks. The first time I was in Rishikesh, Raj, I did not see the Himalayas. I mean, I was in the Himalayas, but it was the lower foothills, as you know. And when I went back the year later to stay there, a fella at the ashram took me in his car up to Kunjapuri. There is a mountain peak just beside Rishikesh. It takes about an hour to drive there in a car on windy roads, and it takes you up to a peak that's about 5,000 or 6,000 feet elevation. And from there, when you look to the east, you see this tremendous, tremendous view of the whole snow-peaked Himalayas. Did you go up on Mount Kunjapuri when you were there, Raj? I don't know you ever told me that. Did you go up there while you were there? I hope so. Anyway, it's absolutely beautiful. And when I finally saw it the next year, I thought to myself, I'm very grateful that I did not see this view last year when I was here the first time. because if I had seen this view, it would have been very hard to leave and get back on a plane and fly back to the U.S. That would have been very hard because it's absolutely captivating. I don't know if I ever told you that story, but mind fantasizing about roaming, and that's not roaming, but Wouter says, Wouter, pondering a little about the witness, pushing away negative emotions because we're afraid of them. Does that make any sense once we identify with awareness? No. Notice, Wouter, that the pushing away of negative emotions is a habit that most of us have. Most of us accidentally have cultivated this habit of pushing away negative emotions. This entire process of witnessing, I started by talking about Rojo witnessing her knees, and now she's moved around again, and observing things in a relationship like that. And it gets subtler and subtler, very much including negative emotions. So gradually what we want to happen is that I'm feeling not so damn afraid of having a negative thought. It's like, okay, it's a negative thought. And most of the negative thoughts that we have are built on vikalpa. They're built on fantasies. Our mind conjures up some things, and then there's a negative emotion to go along with it. So gradually, yes, we want to train ourselves to not push away negative emotions. Don't feed them and get lost in them and drag them around, but be aware of them. Once we identify with awareness, since the witness is uncolored and free. The witness is always free, but it's looking outward through the dirty lenses, through the dirty car windows, the dirty glasses. So when we're looking out through that filter of samskaras, we see the world out here and other people in certain ways. And so that's how we end up with our negative emotions. But as best we can, we want to cultivate as best we can the awareness that I am awareness. I may not be self-realized. I may not be Krishna. I may not be Buddha or Christ or whoever you want to think of. I may not be in that degree of enlightened state all the time, but we can have some awareness that I am back. Here's what Nellie was talking about earlier, I think, with the mind, and where we start to see, wait a minute, my mind is not me. I am not my mind. My mind is an instrument, like my glasses are an instrument. And so we get better and better at that. And more we realize that the awareness is there. Since the witness, and it's uncolored and free, but since it's looking out through dirty glasses, we take it on. But yes, what we want to do is gradually, as Swami Rama told me, witness everything. And it's a literal suggestion. It's literal. But it comes in stages. Where do we start? Start by just being aware, mindful of the world around us, and being aware of our own gestures and body language, and being aware of our breath, and being aware of having a nice posture, and being aware of knees that are moving. Observe your own habit there. She just went to me. She's nodding at me and going and making little facial expressions. Now, we all know that. We read one another's facial expressions, and so she gets to be aware of that from the inside. And I'll note here that when somebody else, when I'm sitting out here making comment to all of you about what Rojo is doing, it can feel very intimidating. It can feel uncomfortable. One of the approaches in psychotherapy is called Gestalt therapy, created by a man named Fritz Perls. And his approach to therapy was to sit in front of his client and say, your hand just moved. Now you just moved your toes. Now you blinked your eyes. And I remember seeing in graduate school a video of this man doing a session with a woman. And the woman was just about falling apart emotionally because we feel looked at, we feel observed. So if you're observing other people, try to be very respectful, to not overly do. While I'm sitting here using Rojo as an example, I know her very well and I can tell she's comfortable. But if I started doing this if I started telling her about her lip that just moved and a little muscle behind that and her thumb that just moved on her cell phone and her head just nodded and turned and her jaw just moved. If I do that too much, and if I'm paying attention, I will know that it starts to become uncomfortable for the other person. And if you keep doing that to somebody too much, you're not doing ahimsa, you're not doing non-harming, because it can be terribly, terribly invasive. It's not meant to be that. Anyway, don't push away the negative thoughts. Walter, gradually learn to witness them. Should we practice pramana or just witness? Yes, cultivate. Yes, I forgot to put that up. Yes, cultivate. What we try to do is cultivate having clear thoughts as best we can. The pramana here, real or valid cognition, right knowledge, valid proof, seeing clearly. That's a stepping stone. We want to be aware of when I'm seeing unreality, and we want to be aware of, goes my mind off into fantasy land. And if you catch your mind going off into fantasy land, what is it that you're automatically trying to do? You're trying to say, oh, no, note to me, internal dialogue. I need to see clearly. So yes, it's an active thing. Thank you, Eileen. You did not go to Kunjapura. Oh, I guess it did not come up in the conversations because you were trying to go to Badrinath. I wish I had thought about that at the time. I would have said, well, if you can't get there, at least go up to Kunjapura. Does not make any sense. I mean, now I'm going to have to go back there. Oh, I see what you're saying. I think that the negative emotions make absolutely no sense. I think I'm seeing there what you're saying. Yes, that's right, Walter. This is what we start to see. We say, wait a minute, this is what I sometimes call, oh, silly mind. We catch ourselves, oh, silly mind, you just went off into fantasy land again, one more time. BBC. Last night watched BBC documentary about Ganga, and boy, amazing cinematography of the high peaks. Yeah, Badrinath, Gomukh, Tapovan, absolutely beautiful, just stunning and enchanting. There's something about the Himalayas that sends a current through Raja's body. Yes. Vikalpa is a purple penguin. That's kind of cute. Imagining wonderful things is also Vikalpa. Can be helpful, non-afflicted. Yes, it can be helpful. In fact, this is what creative thinking is. Think about creative thinking. Creative thinking is fantasy. It is a form of hallucination. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but if we're using that kind of mind wisely, it's a good thing. Cultivating buddhi, Roseanne says, pramana means cultivating buddhi. Yes, they go hand in hand. The buddhi is the instrument, and cultivating, using that instrument, leads us towards seeing it clearly. Exactly, Roseanne. Okay, let's see. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Of these 5, there are 3 ways of gaining correct knowledge. Pramana, perception, inference, and testimony. There's the fancy words down there. And there's 3 ways to get correct knowledge. You see it directly, you know it directly, you think your way through it, and it's logical, and somebody else who knows about this tells me about it. Rojo's sitting here, so I'll use her as an example again. She has an excellent ability to explain how the human body works and how health works and how disease functions. So when I want to understand something about that, I ask her and she will explain it to me. Sometimes she'll give me a piece of information that just says, here's the answer. That's listening to her testimony because she's an expert. Sometimes when you pose a question to me and I give you, bang, here's the answer. But when we take the time, whether it's her telling me something about the body or me trying to explain some principle to you, that is the effort of doing reasoning. It's trying to do coaching. It's trying to coach one along so that the other person can understand the logic of it. An example comes to mind when Rojo gives an explanation. I was trying to understand these explanations about how fat gets into a muscle cell and is the leading cause of diabetes. It made no sense to me. I couldn't understand it. Why? Because I live in a culture that has for my whole life told everybody that the thing that causes diabetes is sugar. And it's simply not true. Well, when you just hear that sentence, you can't follow the logic. It makes no sense. So one night I said to her, Rojo, I've looked at it. This doesn't make sense to me. Can you explain it to me? She pulled out a sheet of blank paper and a pen, and she drew a circle and said, imagine this is a cell. And she started drawing little pictures to me. And what she was doing, she gave me the answer. She said, no, it's about fat going into muscle cells. I had the answer. There was the information. That was this. But that was not useful to me. When I said, can you explain it? She walked me through because she knows I'm intelligent and I can follow what she's saying reasonably well, And so I followed her through and it made sense. And so then that's a convergence of two things. Now, in the case of a muscle cell, I don't know how you have direct perception. If we're talking about diaphragmatic breathing and Sushumna awakening, you can get the information. You can start to think logic of, sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. That can make logical sense. And then you have to have direct experience. When we're talking about Yoga Sutras, Patanjali is giving us information. That information is being backed up with what Swami Rama says when we go through what he's saying. It's backed up with what I'm saying because I know you trust me. There's value in that. But you have to understand the reasonableness of it. That's why I like to have these things be a conversation, some back and forth, because then it becomes your reasoning, your inference, your deduction that is giving the validation, not merely mine. And then when you sit down and you do the practice, you come to realize, wow, this shit is really true. And I think possibly, this is my humor speaking, that possibly Patanjali knew what he was talking about. And so this is what we want, is the convergence of those three. And then he talks about what this incorrect knowledge is. There's a sutra about that, incorrect knowing. If you can see this picture, it's a classic example. It's called Rubens' vase. If you look at this one way, you see there's the front of a face. The black ink is a face, and this is a face. So it's two people looking at each other. And you blink your eyes, you look different. If you look only at the white, you see a vase. And these are not faces, these are the edges of a crystal vase or vase. Fantasy, this is a big one, Vikalpa for most of us. Dreamless sleep, Nidra. And is simply reproducing of a previous impression. It's simply a memory. It's just a memory. It's the fellow that I mentioned that I saw in the store that I hadn't seen in a while a few days ago. The first thing that happened was the memory came up. And then it came up as being related to the person I know. So there's a sequence of what happens in there. There was a perception, a mere memory, and then there was a recognition that it is a correct knowing that it is this person, and coming along with that was a raga, an attachment, because I like this man and consider him a friend. So a very rapid fire, quick sequence happens then there. And by cultivating this, witnessing everything and all this, gradually we come to see more and more and more of all of that. Okay? So let's see, what have we got here? TY, thank you. You're welcome. So, alrighty. Time to go. I hope this was fun. Thank you all for joining in and playing. And we'll come back in an hour. Maybe it's time to take a little walk. You want to take a little walk, Rojo? I want to take a walk. I want to get out and walk some. It looks like a nice day out there. Good day for a walk. So, okay, thank you all. Forgot to put who I am. There's who I am, in case you forgot who you're talking with. And there's a little heart from Leela. Daniel, hi, Daniel. I didn't even know that you were here. The way this thing works, I don't know who's here unless you type a thing in the box. Nice to see you, though, Daniel. Wonderful. Thank you all for playing. Yes, thank you all for playing. Yeah, it is nice to be, because being able to interact this way. And so, night, Joe. Night. Have a good rest. Thanks for playing, Raj. When do I see you, Raj? Not this coming weekend, but the week after, I think. Soon. Raj is coming to visit. Goody, that will be fun. Yeah. Eileen, bye-bye. Thank you for the reminder, Eileen. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. The silence after the Om. Let's let Eileen's Om Tat Sat be the closing for the day. Okay. Bye, all. See you in a little bit if you're free. If not, another time. And if you want to do some closer chatting and interaction, go into that table talk group. Some of you are being kind of active there, and it's a nice thing. I like to be able to use that as a place to have some more interaction. So, okay. As the Dutchies say, dooey, bye-bye. See you in a little bit or later. Have a good meditation. And remember, that's what it's all about. Doom.